Gossip Girl ended so insanely, but that was 3 years after the audience stopped caring and 2 years after the cast stopped caring. Nostalgia remembers the phenomenon, erases later lesser years. You can go back and watch the pilot on Netflix right now and ignore the canonical revelation, reality-crashing spoiler alert, that Dan Humphrey, last great fashion showcase for the color brown, was Kristen Bell all along. This was a final regular ludicrous plot turn, so obviously unplanned. You wish that revelation had been the revelation, that Dan had suddenly ascended heavenward, eyes shining starfire as he intoned "We are all Gossip Girl," and the heavens opened to rain hellfire on earth. And decent folk like Dorota rose with him, while monstrous cravens like Carter Bazin remained behind to smirk and suffer. But weirdly, Dan as Gossip Girl retroactively gives the show a timely quality that it never really had. It suggests a deeper, weirder perspective on the internet and modern life, vastly more disturbing, darkly funny. An unhappy young man flees to the internet, where he echo chambers unsourced rumors and unwanted photographs into ruinous media narratives. He's a troll, sure, but maybe you think he's a troll for truth, a class warrior embedding himself amidst the 1%ers, destroying them from within, and getting the girl. Wasn't Gossip Girl his Mr. Robot? Hell, Gossip Girl. There's a 5 steps cooler notion of the show that identifies Dan as some archetype of gender transition, a young man whose inner voice sounds like Veronica Mars. "I don't read Gossip Girl," Dan tells his little sister, "that's for chicks." That line's retrograde even in the show's own dude context. When Slithery Chucked Bass spots a new conquest, he asks anything about her on Gossip Girl. And you wonder if Dan is throwing his little sister off the scent. No sis, I'm a guy's guy. I rock flannel khaki.and. With eyes toward a Redken, the Gossip Girl pilot leaves room for the possibility of Dan as some kind of stalker. He looms over Nate Archibald and Chucked Bass in a bus, and Chuck can sense some unusual interest. "Are you following us or something?" He runs into Serena while she's fleeing a hotel bar, and she drops her phone. Or did she drop it, or did he pull a Tom Ripley and snag it right out of her purse? Much of the show's initial concept depended on Dan as our more relatable figure, a regular Cinderella boy among princes and princesses, though anyone who has ever lived in New York can only marvel at the deconstructed grandeur of the Humphrey loft. But if Gossip Girl still has a real, urgent pulse, it's the total inversion of that plot. Was he the modern puppet master, destroying lives with a keystroke? Did he win Serena's love or trap her? Because Gossip Girl involved the internet, and because it depended so much on a new kind of TV devouring internet culture, the typical decade outread has the show as some generational marker, a sign of things to come. As my colleague Ruth Kinane hilariously points out, this renders certain elements of the show as obsolete as a flip phone. But re-watching the pilot today, you wonder if it was always a nostalgia trip, one final look back at a much more coherent era. Gossip Girl is a blog, sure, but it's also a single news source, the monocultural rumor mill. You imagine dead movie stars turning on a radio, hearing its head hopper here at the just right plot moment. And there's a strange, oddly endearing baseline plot foundation that Gossip Girl is always telling the truth, that if you obey the tenets of the original time before the universe collapses and Serena moved to Los Angeles, Gossip Girl is an unbiased observer of her beloved Upper East Siders. This is maybe a relic of something particular to New York culture circa 2000s, the era of socialite rank. Characters on Gossip Girl treat the Gossip Girl blog the same way journalists treated Gawker in its early days, half industry rag, half blind item launchpad, desperate to not appear on it, a little bummed if they don't appear on it. But socialite rank and Gawker had a perspective and an agenda. On Gossip Girl is a plotline facilitator, an information provider. It's old media, omnipresent and essential. Us here in the media loved this show. It's also the only essential plot element that time locks Gossip Girl anywhere past the millennium. In the pilot, Nate's dad demands that he stay in a relationship with Blair, because he's negotiating with her mom. Not the first time a parent on Gossip Girl would go all Thomas Cromwell with their children's love lives. And characters on the show have a tendency to lurk around corners or see things they shouldn't see from a hidden vantage point, like actors lurking on the upper stage of the Globe Theatre.